Jake Lawson never liked taking the long road home, but something about that morning felt off. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that blanketed the world in quiet tension. Rain threatened, and the fog rolled across the narrow, two-lane road like smoke from a dying fire. He just dropped off his daughter, Mia, at Maple Ridge Elementary, and his thoughts were stuck on overdue bills, a busted fuel pump waiting at his garage, and whether Maya had remembered to pack her reading log. Typical thoughts for a man holding his world together with duct tape and quiet prayers. As he turned onto Willow Creek Road, a shortcut he rarely used, a glint of metal caught his eye. At first, it looked like debris from a storm or maybe an old car door left behind by careless teenagers. But as Jake approached, the shape became unmistakable. A car flipped on its side, wedged partially off the road into a ditch. Steam or maybe smoke curled from under the hood, and the windshield was shattered like broken ice. His heart slammed into his chest. He hit the brakes hard, skidding slightly on the damp pavement, and jumped out. The wreck was bad. The kind of bad you don't usually walk away from. Jake raced to the vehicle, eyes scanning for movement. Inside the crushed frame, barely visible through the spiderweb of cracks, he saw a girl. Blonde hair, blood trickling down her temple. Her face slack but breathing. Jake's instincts kicked in. No time to wait for emergency services. The smell of gasoline was thick in the air. "Hang on," he muttered, more to himself than her. He pulled off his jacket, wrapped it around his hand, and smashed the passenger side window. The girl stirred at the sound but didn't respond. She was buckled in, but the seatbelt was locked tight. "Come on," Jake growled, yanking the belt hard. It wouldn't give. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out the utility knife he always kept on him, and sliced through the strap. With effort, he dragged the girl out through the broken window, careful not to cut her more on the shattered glass. He cradled her body in his arms as flames began licking under the hood. Seconds later, a pop. The front tire burst from the heat. Jake stumbled back, carrying the girl to the side of the road. He laid her gently on the grass, checking her pulse. Still there, weak there. She blinked up at him, dazed. "Thank you," she whispered before her eyes rolled back and she passed out. Sirens echoed in the distance. Jake exhaled for the first time in minutes, sitting back on his heels as adrenaline drained from his body. Within moments, flashing lights surrounded them. Paramedics took over, lifting the girl onto a stretcher. A police officer approached Jake, clipboard in hand, but Jake waved him off. "I just happened to be passing by," he said. "Glad I could help." He gave a first name only, Jake, and left before the questions got too deep. Back home, Mia was working on her Lego castle when Jake returned.
"Daddy, you're late!"
she called out, not looking up from her plastic kingdom. "Did the cars eat you again?" Jakey chuckled softly and kissed the top of her head. "Something like that." He didn't tell her about the wreck. She didn't need that kind of worry in her little world. They made dinner, boxed mac and cheese, her favorite. And Jake tried to shake off the weight of the morning. He couldn't. The girl's face kept flashing in his mind. She couldn't have been more than 19 or 20. Something about her had stuck with him. Not just her injuries or the crash, but the fear in her eyes, like she hadn't just survived an accident, but escaped something much worse. After Mia went to bed, Jake sat on the couch, half watching the evening news while sorting through unopened mail. The usual bills, advertisements, junk. Then came the breaking headline that made him drop everything. BRNDW's Senator Rebecca Hartman's daughter found after abduction. Jake froze, his gaze glued to the screen. A photo appeared, a young woman, blonde, wide blue eyes. Her school photo. Then another, recent, grainier, showing her bruised and bandaged face. His heart skipped. It was her. The girl from the wreck. The reporter's voice was urgent. Isabella Hartman, 19, was reported missing 2 days ago from her college campus. Authorities now confirm she was abducted, but managed to escape earlier this morning. She was involved in a car crash while fleeing and is currently recovering at Ridgeview Medical Center. The FBI believes her captors are part of a broader political threat against Senator Hartman. Jake couldn't breathe. He had saved the daughter of one of the most powerful women in the country. And he'd walked away without leaving his full name. No one knew who he was. Except the girl, and maybe, just maybe, the people who were chasing her. He slowly turned the volume down, suddenly aware of how silent the house had become. Outside, the fog was returning, thicker than before. Jake stood and quietly locked every door and window. Something told him this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, Jake Lawson stood at the sink, washing breakfast plates with one eye on the backyard, where Maya was playing with their dog Tank. The crash still haunted his thoughts. The image of the girl's bruised face, Isabella, burned into his memory. The TV was off, the news unspoken in their home. But in his gut, Jake knew this wasn't something that would just fade away. Then came a knock at the door. Not a neighbor's knock. Not the friendly rhythm of a package delivery. This was heavy, professional. 3 short, firm raps. Jake wiped his hands on a towel and opened the door slowly. 2 people stood on his porch. A tall man in a black suit, clean-shaven, eyes hidden behind sunglasses, and a woman in a tailored dark coat with an ID badge clipped to her collar. "Mr. Jake Lawson?" the woman asked. His shoulder stiffened. "Yeah." She extended her badge. "Special Agent Dana Greer, FBI. This is Agent Collins. May we speak with you for a moment?" Jake glanced back into the living room. Maya's laughter echoed faintly through the screen door. "Sure," he said cautiously. "Step around back. My daughter's inside." They followed him to the backyard picnic table, where Jake gestured for them to sit. Greer got straight to the point. "Yesterday morning, you assisted a young woman involved in a car crash on Willow Creek Road. Do you recognize this individual?" She slid a photo across the table. A printed image of Isabella Hartman, taken hours after the crash, her face bandaged but eyes wide and alert. Jake didn't pretend. "That's her. I pulled her out before the car caught fire." Collins, who hadn't spoken yet, nodded. "She told us you saved her life. Said she wouldn't have made it without you." Jake leaned back, arms crossed. "I didn't do it for the attention." "We're not here for that," Greer said calmly. "We're here because she gave us your description, and we traced it back through traffic cameras. We had to make sure she was safe, and that you are too." Jake's brows furrowed. "Why wouldn't I be safe?" Collins leaned in, lowering his voice. "The people who abducted her weren't just random criminals. We believe they're part of a domestic cell targeting high-ranking political families. Isabella overheard enough to know they were planning something bigger. An attack. Her escape may have disrupted that timeline." Jake's jaw tightened. "And now they think I'm involved." "No," Greer said quickly. "But they may know she survived. And if they realize she was rescued, they'll want to know by whom, which means you and your daughter could be in danger." The words hit him like a punch to the ribs. His first thought wasn't about himself. It was Maya. Always Mia. Jake glanced toward her. She was still playing, unaware of the storm building around them. "What are you asking me to do?" Greer's tone softened. "Would like you to come with us. Stay somewhere secure, at least until we determine whether this group poses an active threat to your safety. Just a few days. Maya too. You'll be protected, off the grid." Jake looked at the agents. Then at the small home he'd built after his wife died. The place where he'd raised his daughter through grief and grit. And now he had to leave it. Not because of something he did wrong, but because he did the right thing. "I need to pack a few things," he said. Greer nodded. "We have a team nearby. We'll help you move quickly." And 2 hours later, Jake, Mia, and Tank were in a black SUV, heading north to a secluded safe house nestled in the pines. It wasn't fancy, a 2-bedroom cabin with basic amenities and no cell service. But it was safe. Mia was confused but didn't protest much. Jake had told her it was a dad-daughter camping weekend. She believed him mostly. Later that evening, after Mia had fallen asleep, Jake stepped outside to get some air. He stood on the porch, sipping stale coffee, when a second vehicle pulled in. From the back seat stepped Isabella Hartman, her arm in a sling, her face pale but healing. A nurse accompanied her, along with a different agent. Jake stood, stunned. She smiled softly, her eyes glassy. "Hey, I asked to see you." Jake opened the door and let her inside. They sat in the small living room, and for a while, there was silence between them. "You don't know how much it means to me," she said finally, her voice quiet. "I thought I was going to die out there. I kept praying someone would find me. And then you showed up." Jake shook his head. "You're the brave one. I just happened to be passing by." "No," she said, firmer. "You could have driven on. You could have called it in and kept going. But you didn't. You climbed into a burning car for someone you didn't even know." She looked away, then back again. "They were going to use me to blackmail my mother. They think she's hiding files. Something about military contracts and security protocols. I overheard their plans. That's why they won't stop." Jake exhaled slowly. "And now I'm part of this." Isabella looked at him with a solemn kind of respect. "I'm sorry for that. But maybe it's not all bad. My mother's people are working on shutting them down. The more I remember, the closer we get." She stood to leave, but before she stepped out, she turned back. "They think you're just a mechanic. A single dad with a wrench in one hand and a lunchbox in the other." Jake smirked. "They're not wrong. But they have no idea what you're capable of," she said. "You saved my life, and I think you're going to do a lot more than that." She left, her presence lingering like the scent of rain after a storm. Jake sat alone, eyes on the fireplace, the crackle of logs echoing through the cabin. Whatever came next, he'd be ready. Because now it wasn't just about saving one life. It was about protecting everything he loved.